Welcome to the Vertical Pursuit podcast. Mike Barrett, Mike Tatlock. This is where we discuss anything and everything. And as we talked about last week, it's geared toward men and more just bringing things into the light, life into the light, and a lot about teamwork and camaraderie, really.
That's it. And I mean, and reality too is we know, like we said last week, we all got struggles, we all got challenges, and that's the beautiful thing about walking in life together. And it's none of us are perfect, but it's finding hope, finding faith in the midst of all of those challenges and struggles,
Which everybody can relate to.
Exactly.
So sometimes it's going to be just Mike and I. Sometimes we're going to have a guest. I think we talked about that a little bit in our last episode. And today we're excited because hopefully we're going to get a little deep and something everybody can relate to.
It's time to get real.
Yeah, and a guy I've gotten to know and appreciate, and a guy who has a powerful testimony, and a guy who has walked an interesting stretch that none of us are complete, so you're still going through the stretch. It's not like you're out of anything.
That's for sure.
And that's Geoff Walsh. And Geoff is become a good friend, and as I've known and gotten to know your story, and I just said, this is what we do, and this is the kind of story we want to tell. And you, as I would have done, is kind of say, are you sure? Are you sure you want me on there? And even you called me this week and said, hey, you can change your mind if you don't want me on. I said, no, this is exactly what this is all about.
Exactly.
And, you know, we don't have to go all the way back, and I don't want you to go deeper than you want to go. You tell me details, but the gist of it is, and what I've gotten to know about you and talking about you to people is everybody knows who you are. And now I know that to you, that makes you shudder a little bit because of what has happened that we're going to get into. But that's a platform in the way I feel about it now. Mm-hmm. And that's where you're at in this, is your ability now to relate and teach and be an example. So we'll go back. We don't have to go all the way back, but I know very successful banker, very successful in the financial world, and then some things fell apart.
Yeah.
But as I like to say to another friend that we know who this happened to, a similar situation, some people say that's when my life blew up. I always say that's when you were saved.
Yeah.
Without question.
So talk about, first of all, what you were doing before in as little or as much detail as you would like, and then we'll get to what happened.
Yeah. I mean, a little background. I'm from Southwest Portland, Lake Oswego, and I'm of all the Walshes in the world, I'm not related to Bill, Joe, Walsh Construction.
Joe Walsh.
I think it's like the flying Walshenko trapeze that immigrated in. And so I've got a lot of step parents. Single mom for the most part growing up. When we lived on a house with 15 houses and 14 were very religious, and then there was the Walshes. And so kind of, latch key, car broke down, grew up with nothing in Lake Oswego, right? And
which, for those who don't know, Lake Oswego is a pretty affluent place.
Yeah, but we, mom made her way, and anyway, got through school, got into college to play golf, of all things, caddied growing up, and through a lot of mentors caddying at golf clubs, learned how to talk to people, shake hands, look people in the eyes. Yeah. And sometimes just the perception is the reality. Like, you can carry yourself with CEOs of company, big people in Portland. Went away to college, San Diego State. Was really close with a famous TV childhood guy that had access to all LA for 2 years. Too much for a kid from Portland. Had to come back. Went to Oregon. Loved it. Was with my friends, but eventually came home for some family stuff. Was playing golf, bartending, and then the guy that brought Washington Mutual Bank to Portland hired me because I could talk to him and his wife, and I had learned to communicate. Quick fast forward is after 2 or 3 years of learning everything about mortgage banking and construction loans, he gave me his 3 largest accounts and said, hey, when somebody buys their house, be all over them. Next thing I know, maybe 4 or 5 years into Washington Mutual, I was the top loan officer in the system. And that was back in probably 1996, 7, 8. As Washington Mutual grew, my specialties grew. I got to know a lot of people in town, and thought that was what was going on. Met my wife in 1997, and I was earning a lot of money. Things were going good, but really, truly empty. Scared, empty, never graduated from college, barely got through high school. There was no foundation. It was, house of cards growing up. When I met my wife, a woman that I used to work with said, you only marry the person that you can't live without, okay? I had never found the person I could live without until I met her. And then, like I said to you, are you sure you want this guy? Like, you've got a great family life, you got everything, but I'm going to only bring the average down. And anyway, we started a life. A couple of weird things happened. We were told we would never have children. After a bunch of trials and tribulations, I've got 2 beautiful daughters now, right? Just a lot of things. We kind of thought we had the perfect life, but there was what I've found now, that there was no grounding, no faith. She's had it in her family, but I didn't go to church. I'm pretty sure I was, by volume, did more mortgage banking than anybody in 4 or 5 states. Construction loans, if you were building a house, I at least talked to you, right? I did most of everybody's home loans. It was a great run. I made a lot of money. Some of it I was smart with, some of it I wasn't smart with. But I played hard. I worked hard, I played hard. I probably wasn't a good dude. Wasn't the guy I was supposed to be. Didn't feel like it. Loved my wife, loved my family. But as the market moved around, I was always trying to find where I was. And again, unless you have that grounding, it just didn't work for me. So I ended up going to a small bank in my hometown, Bank of Oswego, during the financial crisis, 2007-8. And lots of people that I had met over the years, they needed help. And they didn't want people to know they needed help. And they were struggling, and everybody was struggling, and prices were going down, and when does it end? And banks were going broke. And fortunately, for a couple of years, we had solutions. I was able to help a lot of people. And I can tell you, I helped a lot of people the orthodox way and unorthodox ways. Yeah. And I can truly say that almost everything I did was with the best intent, right? But it probably, it isn't the way I should have done it. Personality conflicts within the bank and some other situations arose. I ended up getting fired for cause, okay? Which, wrong, right, or indifferent, I did. And in hindsight, I'm glad I did. I knew that I didn't really want to be in banking, but I didn't want to get taken out that way. A couple of weeks, I was still trying to figure out my next angle. A couple or few weeks later, I was getting ready to go to an appointment, 6 o'clock in the morning. I heard a bunch of doors shut outside. I looked. The whole cul-de-sac had the FBI, and the every car around stopped, just like the TV shows and the movies. Wow. Next thing, I opened the door. FBI came in, probably, 20, 25 of them. Kids asleep, wife asleep, kids asleep, sit down, and for the next 5 hours, the house was turned up looking for everything.
Wow.
To my children, to my wife, to me, still probably the most frightening day of all time. Like, what did you do? What's going on? And candidly, I didn't know what was going on. So once that happened, I'm quickly out of banking. I still thought I could do the financial deal, but it becomes a realization that I can't. The house was torn up, and I went to an attorney, and from there, in a weird way, hell started. That might have been the fire of the storm, but that process all the way to actually walking into prison, the unknown and the battles and the test on my family and my extended family and my in-laws and friends, and do they trust you? Do they not trust you? And then not having any foundation or religion going back or any faith at all. I don't know how we stayed together. I don't know where we were. right? So every day seemed to be an aimless journey trying to house a card it, fake it till it gets better, with some belief it'll get better, some hope. So anyway, so bottom line is that's called pretrial. I had an almost 8-year pretrial, which what I found out when you get into prison, one of the things that people talk about, because everybody has numbers, you don't discuss your crimes in prison, but you discuss your pretrial. Because whether you're a bank case, a drug case, a whatever case, that period of time is the most stressful. And I was the second longest of all the people I met. And so I actually was given some credibility, but 8 years of not knowing.
8 years before you went
Before
to
I
prison.
went in, yeah.
So the 8 years, you talk about a test. Yeah. So even though you were in, what, 2?
Yeah.
You were in 10.
Yeah.
In many ways, right?
Yes. And now I'm just, probation will be over in 8 more months. And then this thing will be probably a 12, maybe 12 and a half, 13-year grind. Wow. And I do equate it a lot with my family, like to the basketball games where the last minute, some people want the shot, right?
Yeah.
But it's the family that's stressing out. And it's the player can do the work.
Right.
I can do the work. I'm most concerned about the daughters and the family and the parents and the in-law. And I get the unique, dubious distinction of my brother, my biological best friend brother was part of my case, right? So he had to go to prison for a year and a half, and he's lost his family, and he's gone through the same stuff that I've gone through. So I haven't been able to talk to him for 7 years either, which as soon as this is over, that's the first amends that I have to make.
That's crazy. Because, I've talked with a lot of guys who have gone to prison, and they talk about the pretrial, and there's its own hell that you're in. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the uncertainty of where's this going to go? Am I going to go to prison? Am I not? And it's a slow process, and who do you trust, and who's going to represent you, and what are people going to find out? I'm sure that you already had, during that pretrial time, before you even went into prison, you probably already had people treating you differently. What was your biggest struggle? I mean, during that time, I mean, like you mentioned, like your family and the girls, and how did people treat you even during the pretrial? What was that like?
Well, first of all, in the business, shunned, toxic.
Yeah.
Just banking, nothing. Yeah. Then again, my skill was finance and knowing the ins and outs of how it worked. There's also this what do I do? I can't try out for a basketball, soccer, football team. Yeah. I can't swim. Yeah. I can't, what am I going to go do for a living? And I'm bad with a trailer. I'm bad with a big truck. I can't drive. I mean, you're starting to go through felon wanted ads. God, I don't know. So I'm trying to figure out who I am, what I'm going to be. I had some people at that time in my life that I thought were my close friends and would always be there. And, I had a few people come to the family, some couples, and rescue us, befriend us, just hold us tight. Hey, we're with you. Yeah. I had some people from an employment standpoint say, hey, we'll be there for you. We're always there for you. You've always taken care of us. Yeah. Come to find out they weren't, but wrong, right, and different, that's their choice. But that's the part where you're on skates and you're wobbly. You just don't know, right? And then, I mean, I'd be lying to say, being from Southwest Portland and a Caucasian male going into a prison, I don't know what to think during the heaviest drug times of our lives. I don't know what's going to happen there and how it's going to work. I had talked to some people that had previously been there, and their experience was over here and mine was over here.
Is it like the movies where when you get your sentence and the gavel comes down, you're let off and that's it?
For me, no. Okay. Some people, yes.
Okay.
And some people that I met, yes, who didn't get the chance to say goodbyes and do all that, yes. Because I had so much time, monthly reportings and, monitoring everything I did. I didn't have to wear the anklet before. I did afterwards, which is tan line, all that damn. But no, I mean, I was able to, the week before I went in, I was able to go. My best friend and I married sisters. So my best friend and I are brothers-in-law. And that's, for the majority of the times, that's wonderful. Sometimes it's a little too close and a little too crazy, but So we were able to take a week away for spring break with everybody. And as sad as it was like, hey, this is it. I left, spring break early to go prepare. I've felt like I've always done well under pressure. Like I've just give me pressure, and the more pressure I'll do okay. Yeah. The day or two before, I was shaking, and the fog, and I was a disaster. I couldn't count to 10 just from the anxiety of going forward. And so then finally my wife and daughters came back, and then we drove to Sheridan together, which, fortunately for us, there's only like one or two turns between. Once you go from Lake Oswego to 99, it's a pretty straight shot. And
this is the federal prison.
Yep. Everybody was crying. My daughter's crying, and I'm, in hindsight, I was making calls on the way out there to tell some people goodbye with my family. Right. I mean, we were talking, but it was, I can't believe I made those phone calls. Yeah. It's still like, there's nobody more important than what I got here. And I was calling other people. Brutal. Yeah. The other thing that's really weird, I'm deathly claustrophobic. Deathly claustrophobic. Wow. When I was arrested previously and sent to Inverness for a couple of days, which is out by the airport, where you're locked away into the small space. And it's everything you think about Multnomah County, and it's scary and not fun. And I was like, God, if I'm in there, I might just die of cardiac arrest, and this thing's over like quickly, and then we're moving on. But I got there, and it's the long goodbyes, right? We're hugging each other and saying goodbye, and then do you guys want to come in? I don't know at what point when we pull up in the car. Right. Because I had to be there at 2:00. And so we're in the parking lot, and there's nobody to greet you. There's nobody to say this way or Walsh's or like whatever.
Concierge.
So then, and trust me, I had spent nights and nights and nights looking online and the pamphlet and trying to learn what I could learn and interviewing people. And I recognized the building from the picture with the barbed wire and the whole deal. And so I'm like, I start walking, and I've already hugged everybody, and everybody's crying. But then it's like, nobody's stopping us. Why don't we all walk up? So my daughters and my wife, we walk to the door, and there's the guard. And then, hi, I'm Geoff Walsh. I'm here to report. And right then you would think, okay, protocol. Like I'm not on the list. What?
You're like,
are you sure today?
They made a mistake. I'm free.
Right, I'm good. I showed up. It's on
and then
now.
it's like, then I'm trying to be, I don't know, comical, jovial, whatever the word is, and then I'm like, I don't know how this goes, and I get that kind of look because we all get from our wives, like, how do you not know this, you dumbass? like, how do you not know? And I don't know. And so, and then it's, after a few minutes, yes, it's okay. Like, yes, you're right. And then it's like, go over there and change your clothes, right? And so I had to take off everything but my ring. I was able to, some glasses, and they kind of give you some government authorized clothing. And then you're doing the long eyes, and I go behind that, as long as you can, love you, miss you, and you leave.
Wow.
And then it starts, right? Then
that's it.
Yeah. So so I got there on a Friday. Again, I'm not knocking. I love government workers. I love the help, but Fridays generally people leave a little early, right? So you get there Friday. Thank God that there was a gentleman there that says, hey, I'm going to get you into the camp so you don't have to stay up here during the weekend. And at Sheridan Federal Prison Camp, there's a camp where the one thing about the camp, everybody's got a release date, and that's people are going to go home. There's another area where people aren't going home, and they've done a lot of heinous things. And then there's kind of the in-between where people are they're waiting, they're not sure, they're appealing their case, they just shouldn't be out in the public. And that's where you go before they put you somewhere. And that, ironically, there's a little more anxiety in there and a little more stuff because those people, you just don't know what you get. And every new person that comes in, new male that comes in, everybody looks at you. It's not like being at the church when everybody looks at you either. It's you're going there and you can feel everybody looking and they're yelling stuff at you. So, I get put into a little holding area with two guys, and tall, bald, maybe not the best teeth, or dentist, and another guy, and we're in there, and I'm scared I'm shaking.
Yeah.
I'm shaking.
I can imagine that. I mean, my question to you is, when you're walking in there, it's not like your first day of high school has its own anxiety and fear, and you're like, well, which clique, which crowd, who am I going to fit in? My question to you is, what's the biggest fear in that moment? Like, what are you feeling? What are the thoughts? Are you thinking like, man, somebody's going to kill me? Are you thinking like, am I going to make it past the first? Like, what are you feeling in that moment?
I've been in this room with these guys for 3 hours. And if I start screaming right now, nobody can hear me because it's concrete walls and it's the doors. And if he chooses to kill me, how's he going to kill me? And what's he going to do to me? And every male's worst nightmare about, am I going to be straight or not by the time this is done? And I can't tell you. I mean, I know this is a different deal, but gay for the stay was the thing that kept going for my brothers. Guys, and
survival mode.
Survival.
Yeah.
And how do I survive, and what do I survive from? Or do I just at some point rest the eyes and go somewhere else?
Yeah.
So I get out hours later. I'm in a green jumpsuit or green elastic shorts. I've got them really big because I'm claustrophobic, with the most hideous, huge orange Crocs you've ever seen. Orange, dark green.
Well, at least you matched.
Yeah, a V-neck, like kind of a scrub shirt with a bled pink shirt, and a roll that has 2 blankets, 2 sheets, toothpaste, a toothbrush, and I think a bar soap. And then there's 2 houses, 2 bunk units, and they say you're in 5. So there's 5 and 6. And so you walk out. Okay, there's nobody there because they're all in for count. And so you walk down, and all the inmates that are in there are in the windows, and they're yelling at you as you're walking down. And it's probably 100 yards, right?
Oh,
and as I found out later, like sometimes you come in with 2, 3, 4, 5 guys. Sometimes you come in in a group. Sometimes you come in during lunch. You blend in. It's like recess. I just happened to get there Friday after a count where everybody was in, and so I'm walking in, and I'm looking at these Crocs like, you got to be kidding me! Like you got to be kidding me! And so then I walk in, and I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do, and I'm like, the guy yells at me, what hall? I got a piece of paper. I don't even know what the hall is. And so it turns out I find where I'm supposed to be, and it's a 2-person area, like a 2-person bunk is original for it. But we've got 6. So we've got 2 bunk beds on one side, 2 bunk beds in the middle, and 2 bunk beds on the side. And there's wings like that everywhere, and it's mayhem. Smells not super good, not like deodorant and like incense or anything. It's awful. And literally, as I was told numerous times, just keep your head down and just do you. I had a little tiny cabinet that had 3 drawers in it. I had the top of it. I had a chair, 3 hooks, a little window, and I was the top bunk. And right there, I know that's going to be my area for the next couple of years.
When did you start to meet the people that would ultimately help you through this hell?
About 30 minutes later. So find out that everybody comes in that green jumpsuit, and everybody comes in with orange Crocs. Okay, I didn't know that. There was one gentleman that came in earlier that had the orange Crocs. Quickly, doing people, I realized, like, I'm not alone with the orange Crocs. Now this is how everybody gets to see the new people for 2 days. Felt a little bit better there. This guy who you probably don't want you showing you around comes up to me about a half hour later and starts showing me around. This is where I think there is, he was looking out for me. As I'm going around meeting people, there's a person in there who I didn't know was in there, who I had done a hard money loan for.
Wow.
And he looks at me. I look at him. Like, you're kidding me. He's like, Geoff. And I go, oh my God. And I look at his area really quickly. It's pristine, magazines, books, watches, food, checkers, I got nothing. Right? I got sheets, a pillow. I don't have a towel. I don't have nothing. And he's like, I thought you were coming. I heard you were coming. Yeah. We weren't super close before. I didn't know him that well, but I was like everything, holding on to that guy. So
Wow.
he walked me around and introduced me to people, and then introduced me to people. Said, you don't want to know these people, and you don't want to be here. And he was a person who went through court in LA, who, like you said, he was arrested, stayed in LA County Jail for a couple of weeks, then got accused of his crime, and then taken out, and never got a chance to say goodbye to his newborn, to his wife.
That was it.
And people don't tell you about travel in prison, where he, paper suit, shackled, chained to somebody, and you go through Pahrump, Nevada to get here, which it might be a normal 2-4 hour flight from Alaska, but it's like a month and a half, 2 months in the prison system. So he was telling me all of that.
Gee.
He introduces me to his group of people. And obviously there's a lot of nationalities, a lot of different backgrounds in prison, and these are islanders and African Americans, and it's an eclectic group of a lot of different Spanish guys, and just, and it turns out that as we're talking, hey, I know this guy says, this gentleman to me, they all ask, where are you at with the Lord? This is
That's
night
like
one.
They come out of the gate, day one.
Yeah,
Wow.
maybe like, hey, I'm from Portland. I know him. He did one of my loans. Hey, where are you at with the Lord? I'm all ears. If I need to be with the Lord, I'm with the Lord today. I don't know, right? I'm trying to say, guys, I don't.
Yeah.
And the one thing too, like, I'm not going to give information there, but I'm going to be honest, right? I'm not going to be vulnerable in here because I don't want to be naive. And so I'm trying to find this weird balance. And honestly, it's a sales call, right? Like initially, like I'm just trying to make sure I don't get hurt. I would never know, but that's the lead pastor of the church. That's the head vocals of the church. That's one of the basis of the church in the prison. And ironically, then it's one of the gentlemen, a homosexual guy in the church who is from Beverly Hills, who is used to be an accountant to a lot of famous people, but because of his sexual orientation, he had some problems within the community of the church. But it was a really cool, eclectic group. We all have to go back to sleep, which I don't think I slept for the first 3 nights. Yeah. I'm one eye open, like, I don't know, how does this work? Guards come all night. Saturday, hey, Sunday's Easter. If you're not religious, I didn't know that until Sunday that I went in on Good Friday. Okay.
Wow.
I don't know that. I don't even know what Good Friday is until Sunday. And then, so there's these buildings, there's a track, a really run down area outside that's like a workout area, and then a chapel. And the chapel is rustic and quaint and vaulted and cute, and every church denomination gets their time in there, right? And I went with my friends because I didn't know why I was in at that time, but I could tell there were more people in this than the others just by sheer numbers. And in there, 10,000 Reasons is the first. So they start with the music. 10,000 Reasons is the first deal. Then it goes to Even If, and then we go to. So when I go to church every Sunday now, I take those 4 songs as loud as I can. I'll never forget the time that I spent in prison because of what the church did for me. So, and it's the same songs. I'll listen to the same 5 or 6 songs every Sunday now and every back, and that's my reset. Yeah. But these guys start talking about Easter and him rising and putting on the cross, and I can only, again, not that I'm that, but here's my old life. Yeah. And I'm stuck in a prison on Friday that was Good Friday, and it's Easter, and Easter was about candy and making stuff for the kids and the whole deal. And I got no books. I don't have my clothes yet. I don't have food. Like, I'm in on this. And so church that day was 2 hours. And so then Arnie, who's a Hawaiian guy from Seattle, and I came up past him. I said, that's crazy. Like, and he's like, Brother Geoff, you really like that? And I go, that was fascinating. And so we just started walking, and he brought me into his group, and it's Sunday, right? And as we're walking around during the deal, all of his posse, if you will, are all quoting scripture and, amen, brother, and amen. And I had never heard anybody say a phrase and then amen. Like again, I just feel like today, where was I for 45, 6 years when I heard about, I drive by churches, I see churches, people, I don't know if I go left or right. How did people learn this? Where was I to not ever go? And so, I just kind of, church was on Friday nights. Wednesday, there was a Bible study with this church. And Sunday mornings, Robert Lewis did an men's fraternity, Authentic Manhood. And there were only 11 of us that would do that. It quickly became this deal where if I could get to Friday, to get to Sunday morning at 7, and then get back to Wednesday, I could do 2 and 3 increments through this deal.
These were your lifelines every week.
All it was. And it was the most powerful, like I could just get there and I look forward. About a month later, every day I sat front row. I sat with a guy from Seattle that lost his wife, lost his kids, lost his mom, probably done 14 or 15 years away. But he was a sports guy. So he knew Seattle sports better than anybody, high school sports and stuff. And I sat, and he says, I've been incarcerated for however many years, and these are all the people that have passed away. But I come right here because Arnie has been in 2 prisons with me and taught me this, this, and this. And after 2 months, we'd have the hand on each other's knee, right? And then other people would come in, and I just felt that it was safe. It was okay. And it represented like men in their weakest times are all in here, and they're in this room listening to this man, and it's not about violence, and it's not about, everybody in here has done something wrong per what society says, but everybody in here is, for right now, believing in something. And these are the worst of the worst of the worst people that can get out of a prison. And so when you take the lowest common denominator, and who I thought I was pretty cool and pretty special and all that stuff, I'm part of that lowest common denominator too. But we're all like, when you're all at your weakest and you all believe in something, and then you get a few that really want to go further, and you keep, gravitating where these kind of fall aside, these fall aside, these, hey, we don't like his sexual orientation. Well, okay, because he's gotten me through a few times. That's how it starts.
The biggest challenge then, because we all have friends like this, and this is our main reason of doing this whole thing. So how do you get to that guy? And I know we're running long on time, but I love every minute of this. But how do you get to the guy who feels like he doesn't need this when maybe society would say you don't need it? I know, and it took you this to find this. And the phone call you made to me last week when I said, I got to have you on because this story is amazing. Your testimony is amazing. But it was when you said, why hadn't anybody ever told me this? And you called me and you was the authentic masculinity is what you referred to?
Authentic manhood.
Men's
fraternity.
Right. Okay, well, when you said that and you said the reason why you watched VP and kind of teared up was, this reminds me of being in prison and having this old crappy VHS tape pushed into a machine, and it was what rescued you at the time. So back to my original question, and that's the challenge we run up against, and a lot of guys do too, of trying to convince or trying to get somebody to that point that isn't in desperation and finding it when things are good and not only when things are bad. I don't know what the challenge is. I don't know what the solution to that is, but that's kind of the reason why we're doing what we're doing.
I've been trying to articulate this to my wife and to a couple of friends where I feel I've really started in the last 6 months to a year to feel a tremendous responsibility in the sense that I've had more people share dark, weird, bad stuff in their own lives with me. Because in their eyes, they'll never be as bad as I was because they won't go to prison. And so I can share it with you
Yep.
because you're worse off, right? That group with men allowed me to want to get to men's fraternity an hour at a time, because those hour videos were so intense. If I look at my own self, how to be a father, how to be a husband, how to work, how to be faithful, how to do all this stuff. And I was probably pretty crappy at all. So first and foremost, I had to unpack the bag
Yeah.
before I even start about filling it.
Right.
Right. My wife came, so I thought I had our whole financial future while I was away done before I went in. And the things that I thought were set up, my wife and children found out once they dropped me off on my own that none of that was there. So the original people I kind of went all in on
Yep.
said, you know, he's a thug and a crap and you're outlaw. So they had nothing.
Yeah.
I was unfaithful to my wife during that 8-year period. Okay. Not for a long time, but a short time. I had to tell my mother-in-law and my wife, admit to that in the visiting room in prison. Okay. My wife was filing for divorce in prison. My kids for 2 years never came to see me. Didn't want any part of me. I mean, you don't have your wife, your best friend, your partner, your kids who you think are everything, don't come.
Yeah.
I still got more in that bag to unpack. So until I get to the bottom of that deal,
Yeah.
and we only know it ourselves. Like, I mean, I don't know your deep, dark whatever. Like,
Right.
is it porn? Is it gambling? Is it drugs?
Yeah.
Is it whatever it is?
Yeah.
Only you know where it is.
Yeah.
And if you only go so deep, then you're only going to go so high.
Yeah.
And so I have always had a strained relationship with my mother. Okay. My mom was the only one that came every Saturday. Right. I don't even know their car. Like a couple of times she had to fill it with, with antifreeze or whatever the hell to get there. But as I was able to talk to visiting to my mom on Saturdays, she was able to help me get to the bottom of that.
Yeah.
Or maybe I just did it and went with her. But then we got to I'm in prison. I'm going to be single. I can't get in finance. I don't have my kids.
Yeah.
Okay, I got to believe in something.
Yeah.
Right? I started walking 18 miles a day. People would laugh at me within the prison. I met who will to ever be my best friend ever, if you know who Tyson Chandler is. Yeah. This is a spinning image of Tyson Chandler, but 6 inches shorter. Tall, wherever you are, brother. Like, African-American male, long beard, 4 kids, married, spent 30 or 45 years down. I come to find out that he's illiterate, but he's read The Secret on tape 20, 30 times to get through his deals. We figured it out. I probably walked 8,500 miles with the guy. And every single day he's telling me, you got to stay in there, man. You got to do this. You got to do this. You just, but don't give me the religious stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you got to do this. Your wife's got to live her life. And here I am finding inspiration from somebody that we have zero together. And because everybody has a hustle in prison, and he was part of my hustle, and so he kind of kept me safe, and people saw us together. So at that point, I ended up being okay. But he allowed me to go, you go do you, because I've told you, 99% of the people in this place are dirtbags and will always be dirtbags. Yeah. I don't know if we're the one, but I think you're the one. You go do your religious stuff. I'll do my stuff. But he gave me the confidence to explore the church.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at this guy going, you've done 30-something years down, and you're here? And he's like, I'm never coming back.
Yeah.
And so I went there and literally, to get to the point, I dove into the Lord as hard as I could, unpacked my bag, and then just said, be open to believe.
Yeah.
And now, and in there, I've kind of go, prove me wrong. So I listen to the preachers in there. I listen to things that you say online. I'm a sponge. And I'm like, okay, prove you wrong.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I've been to what I would consider the depths of hell while living.
Yeah.
And I don't want to prove you wrong, nor do I want to be over optimistic, but I'm leery. It's to trust but verify.
Yeah.
And at some point, it feels right.
That's right.
And so where I am today is so then you eventually get out. I go to a halfway house. Halfway house is scarier in prison because there's some women in there too, and there's guys going into prison, out of prison. But at least you can occasionally go out for work or go out to get toiletries or go to church service.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I had to ride the bus, right? And I'm out by the airport, so I'm getting on the bus Sunday mornings trying to find every church. I go to a couple, and they don't feel right. I finally found a place where, and again, I joke with him all the time, a 40-year-old, good-looking Australian pastor, right? Not that I'm like, you had me on The Voice, right? I like, everybody likes the Australian voice,
Right.
But the message, I'm locked in, and so I've been going to this, and then I end up really enjoying the church, and even though I've been through this whole experience, and I work at a family law place that's one of the best family law, if you will, and a woman who's been dearly loyal to me and to other felons. It's high resolution or high conflict, screaming, yelling, stuff. I have a sense of calm because that family situation couldn't be as bad as the other stuff. But I know that I've got Jesus Christ with me. I know that He's brought me back. My group of friends that I met in the church, I will never, ever leave. And now in this world, it's safe when you say something to me about the Lord, rather than kind of, ooh, I'm like, what? Send it to me, right? Or a mutual friend we have, like he went to the Portland Christian High School. I didn't know that existed, right? And he's a nice, cool guy. Like, you can do that too? And then give me more. And all of a sudden, instead of like shying away and being the batteries that push back, it's, I want to get more and more and more.
Yeah.
So it's a roundabout way to your question is, if you think when somebody asks me that stuff, like, you think your stuff's bad, well, then go a little bit deeper and get all of it out and then start. Because you're only, it's like the guy that gets the DUI, right? And it's not the first time he drove drunk.
Right.
10 other times.
Right.
I mean,
probably got caught.
If you're telling me this, it's probably this.
Yeah.
The guy that, I went through the drug program in prison. The residential drug and alcohol program, there's 80 of us in a room, and we all have to talk about our crime. You have to give a speech at the end, 15 minutes. Your crime, what you've learned in prison, your family, when you arrested, and what's going on now. And you have to give a speech in front of a couple hundred people. That's where you start seeing, like, you told me it was this crime, not this crime, and you're judged on that whole deal. And you got to be honest with it.
Well, and I know before we wrap up,
sure.
I wanted to, you said a few things, and working with guys a lot over the years, it's really amazing. When we look at a lot of guys like you are successful, making a lot of money, you got the family, you've got it all, right? How many times have we seen men who we look at that have it all? Successful, they got it all. And then all of a sudden you wake up in their headline. And we're like, what happened? And one of the things we talk about is this thing called the slow fade. Nobody wakes up one day thinking, oh, this little decision I made is really going to land me in jail, right? We do the little justifications. Now, this one's not that bad, right? But before you know it, it's the slow fade. And then one day you're like, man, I've drifted so far, so many justifications. And every guy, I think we fear, there's a fear for us as men that someday this house of life, the life that we built is all going to come crashing down. And the second thing that you talked about, I've done a lot of work in prison. My father-in-law was the head chaplain for the state of Oregon and Idaho for chaplain work. And one of the things he would say, and I've learned this too, is that some men are more free on the outside than men are on the inside. And you had to get to rock bottom to find your life. The fact that you went in on Good Friday and experienced what resurrection life is really about, And then you discover what it meant to have a band of brothers, which is what we're talking about.
exactly.
You had to find your band of brothers on the inside.
Yeah.
And you learned in that moment. There's a lot of guys on the outside that have everything but that.
Right.
They have freedom in a sense because they're not behind bars, but they're shackled. Yeah. They're in the prison. They're bound up by depression, anxiety, and trying to maintain success and trying to maintain an image. And they don't have what you actually had, a group of men on the inside where you had to be honest that we're broken, we're not perfect. But it was in that space that really life began, and brotherhood and support. And that's what we're talking about all the time.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Jeff, thank you.
No, thank you guys both. It's super important, I think, for people on the outside to know that there are these bands of brothers that you can go unpack your bag to and just say, hey, can you help me? Yeah. It's really cool. I love what you guys are doing. It's great. Thank you.
Appreciate you being vulnerable, and we're all about authenticity, and that's kind of where it begins. And you got to that point, and I know that your story will help others.
I hope so.
And that's kind of what this is all about.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you both. Thank you.
Thank you, Geoff Walsh, our guest on Vertical Pursuit. We appreciate you watching, listening, and we will see you next time. We invite you to subscribe to our podcast, comment, or message us, and check out our website at verticalpursuit.org. Download the VP app and check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.